Hey, fourth grade, I hope everybody had a really good vacation. So with the knowledge that we are not going to be coming back for the rest of this year, that we're going to be out through June, that changes a little bit of how we look at learning the recorder. So up until this point, if you've been watching these videos and following along, trying to learn all the songs, we were kind of doing that with the idea in mind that if we were able to come back together on May 4th, we might still be able to pull off a short concert. Obviously, with school being out through the end of June, that can't happen. I want to continue moving you guys forward so that you can keep learning new notes, new rhythms, because what we're really building here is the basic skills to be able to play in fifth grade band. So I want to go through a brand new song today. I'm going to teach you a new note as well, but I also want to talk just a little bit about band, which is something we'd be taking time in class to do anyway. So when we are back together in the fall, one of the very first things you guys are going to do is you're going to have an instrument demonstration when you're fifth graders on the very first week of school. And the company that supplies Swansea with band instruments is going to come in. They're going to show you a few instruments. They're going to show you the trombone, the trumpet, they'll show you the flute, the clarinet, the saxophone, and they're also going to show you percussion, which is a couple different instruments all lumped into one person. So the brass family is going to be represented by the trumpet and the trombone. Those are really excellent instruments to think about if you kind of like this instrument thing, but you want something that works a little bit differently than the recorder. We do have to put air into the trumpet and trombone, but the way that we put that air in and what we do with it once it's in the instrument works completely differently than the instrument that you guys have been playing this year. If you kind of like recorder, or at least you feel like you're pretty good at it, then you probably want to think about a woodwind instrument. Clarinet is going to have a very, very similar setup to this, where we hold it right in front of us, left hand at the top, right hand at the bottom, and that's why Mrs. Hart and I have been kind of pushing you to put left hand at the top, right hand at the bottom. You can't play a flute or a clarinet or a saxophone with those reversed, even though it is a little bit more difficult for us to get that right hand at the bottom, left hand at the top. We've hopefully built up that skill by now, and it's not so absurd. The saxophone, clarinet, and flute, they all kind of are held the same. It's just clarinet is like this, flute is like this, saxophone is kind of down in front of you like this, but you'll notice my hands never shift when I move that thing around. So again, if that's something that you feel like you've got a decent handle on this and you'd like to try an instrument that plays a little bit like this but sounds a little bit more like an actual musical instrument, that might be up your alley. Last but not least is percussion. And I name a family and not a single instrument because if you're a percussionist in an orchestra, you don't usually play just one instrument. Usually you kind of master a whole bunch of them so that you can play at different stations. A percussionist in fifth grade is going to play snare drum. And that's a drum. It's about the size of a dinner plate. It sits on a stand right in front of you, and it's the one that has the metal pieces on the bottom that almost kind of rattle. So it has a very distinct sound that I'm sure most of you are familiar with. I unfortunately don't have a snare drum at home, so I can't show you. And you are also going to work on something called a bell set. And if you guys see a bell set, you're going to think, oh, that's a xylophone. And you're pretty much right. It's got metal keys. It's set up almost kind of like piano keys. And you strike it with mallets. And the reason you try both of those is so that you can get an instrument on snare drum that just holds the rhythm. You don't have to worry about pitch and notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But on bell set, you do learn how to play melodies. So you will do that kind of element of reading with treble clef and all that good stuff. It's important to think about if that's something you're interested in, and also if there's an instrument that kind of speaks to you, if there's one that you think you might like to do. but also make sure you go into the fall with an open mind. You might think you want to do trumpet, and then you might walk in there and really see the way that flute is played, the sound it makes, and change your mind. So we want to make sure that you get the instrument that's right for you, an instrument that you're excited about, because that's what you're going to do your best job on in band. Not playing an instrument where me or where Mrs. Hart goes, hey, we need a flute player, so guess what? You're a flute player. But one that speaks to you, one that holds your interest. That's what you're going to do your best job on. That's kind of the short version of the band talk. If we were in class right now, instead of taking 5 minutes, this talk would easily take 20 or 25 because we'd have a lot of really good questions and I would talk too much, as I tend to do. So what I'll say is, if you have a question about band, you may have somebody email me, tmeehan, M-E-E-H-A-N, at swanseaschools.org, and I'll get back to you with the answer. And if it's a question that I think a lot of people are going to have the same one, I'll even address it in our next video. I'll put it up there for everybody, because there's a good chance that I forgot something super duper important. So as far as what we're working on today, we have just kept building up our stable of notes. When we left each other, we had G, A, B, C, D, and we had just started to look at F. We didn't have a good grip on it yet, but we had just started to look at it. And that's going to be 1, 2, 3 in the left hand, 1 and 3 in the right. We leave this hole right here open. We added F sharp one of the last times we were together, talked about what sharps are. Today we're going to add E, and we first see this on page 17. With an example called Let's Play Low E. And even though I've reminded you of this a whole bunch, I'm going to remind you at least one more time that if you didn't bring your book with you or don't have one printed out anymore, you can call this up on the very same My Google site that you're hopefully on right now. And if you go to Recorders, it'll have an option for the music book. I'm looking at it literally right on a computer screen right here, okay? You don't have to print it. You can play it right off the computer, okay? So page 17 is Let's Play Low E. Now, the way we play Low E is we set up like we're going to play a G. So thumb on the bottom, 1, 2, 3 in the left hand. And then we're just going to add these two fingers. 1 on the next one, 2 on the next one, and that's it. It's actually a little bit easier to play than F or F sharp, in my opinion. So the very first one we're going to play, Let's Play Low E, is all low E's. So you don't even have to adjust those fingerings. Once you get it set up, we want to remember that the lower the note is, and this is a low one, the less air we have to give it. Giving too much air is going to give you that overblowing, squeaky, ugly whistling sound. So we want our low E to sound kind of like this. Now if you get something like this, or something like this, that's not the one we want. But there's two things to check. Number one, you can make sure you're not blowing in too hard, just a soft 2. Basically whispering the number 2 in there. The other thing to check is, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different holes covered, there is every chance that you could accidentally let the tiniest sliver of air out. And you might not even notice that one of your fingers is not covering the hole all the way. So you kind of have to check them one by one. We want to make sure we're using this part, the finger pad. Don't use the fingertip, because that doesn't cover as well. And if you make sure you're blowing nice and soft and that those holes are completely 100% covered, you should be fine. So the rhythm in Let's Play Low E is something we should be able to read pretty easily. We're looking at 3 quarter notes and a rest. The next measure is 2 quarter notes, and then it has a half rest, that thing that looks like a top hat sitting on the line that tells us 2 beats of silence. Then we have a half note, 1, 2, 3, 4. Finally, a whole note at the end, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the rhythm on all of this kind of sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, rest, rest. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. and it's going to sound like this, okay? I'm going to give you a count off. That way you can listen to me play it, then you can rewind me back right to the 10-minute mark, and you can try and play along with me as many times as you need to. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rest, rest, rest. Okay, that's it. Nice easy rhythm just to kind of get the hang of low E. Now, the next one we're going to do, Rain, Rain, Go Away, is on the top of page 18. And this one only has 3 notes. Obviously, we're looking to have low E. It'd be silly to learn a note and then not use it in the song we're going to do. But we're also going to have G, and we're going to have A. Okay? Now, this is kind of another occurrence where we're just going to take these 2 fingers and we're going to hover them right above so we can, boom, drop them down and have an E. The very first measure is a half note on G, half note on E, and it's going to sound kind of like this. And you can see how little movement I'm doing. I've got that G set up. All I do is when it's time to play E, I just drop those 2 fingers right into position. Okay? Now, when you're starting to do that, it can be easy to just kind of miss the holes a little bit, but the more you practice it, the more that you build some muscle memory. Basically, your fingers just kind of know what to do, and they drop right into the correct place. The next measure is very, very similar to the one we just played, except instead of a long half note G, it has 2 quarter note Gs. So it's gonna, measure 2 is gonna sound like this. Okay, measure 3 is kind of the measure. It's not super difficult, but this is the one where if you can play this, you kind of got the whole thing in the bag. It's gonna go G, G, E, A. So really it's just kind of the one you just played with an A stuck in the end, okay? And it's gonna look like this. Got to remember to take that ring finger off when we remove the right hand fingers for E. And then the last measure is just a repeat of measure 2, G, G, E. Okay, so for this one as well, I'm going to give you a count off. I'm going to play it through with the repeat sign. You can listen to me the first time, and then you can back it up and try and play with me. Right now I'm at about 12 minutes and 30 seconds, so that's where you want to back it up to play with me. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, and since it's been raining like 9 out of every 10 days, that's a particularly appropriate one. Have some fun with that, and like I said, be thinking about whether doing band next year is something you'd like to do. And if you have a question, please, please don't hesitate to shoot it over to me. I'll be more than happy to answer it. It's been a weird year as far as learning recorders goes, that no question there. But hopefully you've been able to follow along with this, and you've been kind of able to rewind these videos and learn it at your own pace instead of having to keep up with everything we need to cram into a 45-minute class. I hope that's kind of worked for you, and I hope that a lot of you guys who earned belts and were working hard towards them when we left will think about doing band, because you got that musical skill. Let's see you use it. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.